Pizza delivery drivers of Reddit, what was the most f***ed up place you've ever stopped at? I worked as a delivery driver for a very small Italian restaurant pizzeria during my first semester of college. This one time I delivered pizza to a swingers party. It wasn't like on the set of a PRNO or anything. He straight up told me when I was like having a party, because he ordered 12 pizzas. He answered that this was his first swingers party and he just wanted to be sure everyone was having a good time. I worked at Domino's and we had to blacklist a guy because he was obsessed with me. He would come in and ask if I was there. If I wasn't working that day, he would just show up the next. If I was on a delivery, he'd wait around in the store for me. He would tell me that he loved me and ask me out on dates. He was very bad on heroin and made it obvious. The last time I delivered to his house, he ordered about $40 worth of food and drinks, and kept trying to hand me $100 even though I told him numerous times I didn't have the change. He apparently stole his grandma's cell phone and wouldn't give it back, and him and his cousin were screaming at each other the whole time I'm waiting to get the smaller bills he kept telling me he had. He had nothing smaller than a $100 and he kept arguing with me because he changed his mind and just wanted one pizza and a drink, and I told him I couldn't do that. At WH Ray house, lady who received the pizza was masturbating at the same time. Our WH Ray house deliveries were a chow. I don't know why my boss continued to deliver there. This was the WH Ray house, mind you. Not a classier massage parlor style place or the BDSM dungeon. I actually enjoyed delivering to them. The girls at the massage parlor would throw mega tips my way. The trashy place would almost always try to weasel out of paying. Complaint stuff was left off type of shitty. The pimp man or whoever he was would always try to recruit me to be one of the girls and various other things. Used to deliver part-time in a not so nice part of town. Used to do a regular delivery to an adult bookstore. My 18-year-old mind was blown the first time I went in and saw all the FX toys and shit hanging on the walls. Another time I delivered to a room at a hot sheet motel. Dude opened the door and while he was counting out the money I saw a naked hooker sit up in the bed behind him. According to Pornhub, who joined them. So while I was an undergrad, I worked as a pizza delivery driver. I had a delivery to a dodgy part of town with a delicious pie. When I got within a couple miles of the residence, a local sheriff's deputy got in front of me. We made all the same turns. Then as we got closer, another got in front of him and one behind me. I start freaking out a bit as I'd been smoking some weed. But carry on. Finally, we all get to the same residence, which is totally surrounded by police in riot gear. Guns drawn. All that shitty. I get out with my pizza and discover the house I'm supposed to deliver to is the one with SWAT out in front. One of the officers waves me off and says, "He's not gonna need that today," and they proceed to breach the door. To which I return to the car with a free pizza and get the hell out of there. They were added to our do not deliver list, but I don't think we ever heard from them again. IDK if this counts as f***ed up, but it always makes me laugh when I think back to it. I delivered pizza to a house where an older guy walks out in a robe sorta mumbling. I hand him the food, he hands me a 20. I tell him it's 24. He mumbles okay and waddles back into the house. Comes back and hands me another 20. I go to my pocket to get change and he slams the door on me. Semicolon. I also once delivered to an older woman who tells me to come in the side door. The food is about $34 and she hands me what I think is 40 and is really sweet. Asking me how I'm doing and all that. I get back into my car and realize it's actually $60 and two of the 20s were sorta stuck together. I go back into her house to let her know and she says, "Oh, I know. It's for gas and whatever else you might need." I always remember that lady because it was just such a random nice thing to do and really made my day. Not pizza but kebab. Last summer, random summer job to help paying bills at home. I don't work there anymore. I delivered to a house. They were selling drugs on the back window of, not weed, heavy drugs. They tipped me $5 on a $15 order, gave me a $20, told me to just keep the change. Doubt he even knew how much the order was, so I decided to pretend I hadn't seen anything and just drove to the next place. Guy who paid me looked like he was quite high. I drove to the customer's house and saw that a guy was being handcuffed by the police in the front yard. I had no idea what to do, so I drove around a neighboring block a few times. When I came back, the police and handcuffed guy were gone. I didn't know if he was the customer or not, so I just walked up to the door and knocked. An old couple answered and took the pizza and paid and didn't say anything about the arrest that happened on their lawn. It was in a city with extremely low crime rate as well, so it was very strange to 17-year-old me. I once delivered to a guy living under his porch, if that counts. I drove up to the house. It's pitch black. No lights on. I look at the ticket and it says use back door. I go up the steps and no lights on. Nothing. Then I hear a voice from below me say, "Hey, down here." I look under the porch and there's a small door leading into what looked like a makeshift apartment. I had to actually crouch to get to it. Gave the guy the pizza and bounced the FCK out of there. This reminds me of a delivery I took once. In the suspicious instructions on the receipt it said, "Watch out for Mexicans under the porch." There were no Mexicans. A good friend of mine delivered pizzas in college and he told me about a time when he left a guy's house after a delivery and was swarmed by cops a few blocks away. After an intense interrogation and proving he was solely a pizza delivery guy, they let him know that the house he had just delivered to was under surveillance because the guy was believed to be a drug kingpin in Knoxville. It was outside of town on a dirt road with tall trees. Every house was basically just plywood shacks. There was broken down cars and trash everywhere. The entire neighborhood just reeked of a B-rated horror film. I find the right house and walk up to the door, but it was just a blanket, so I had to yell pizza. They come to the door and grumbled. It was a haggard looking man wearing boxers and a dirty white tank. Something felt wrong as he handed me a bill that looked washed. I held the $100 with old Ben Franklin's face on it up to the light and could clearly see Abe Lincoln in the paper. They had ordered around $50 worth of pizza and wanted change. He tried convincing me that he went to the bank and they gave him that bill. I asked him why then wrong face was on there and he said that's how they do it. I said hell no and drove away as fast as I could. We stopped taking orders that don't have street roads. The guy at the door slowly opens it armed with a rifle. I asked him if he had ordered pizza, and his reply was like, "Oh yeah. I just wasn't sure that it was you." Between pizza, social work, soldier, census, government field data investigator, I've seen some shitty. Most of the pizza stuff is just people without pants. Or really intoxicated and stuff. But that stuff just turns into same shitty different day. GPS led me to my city's hospital. After getting directions from a lot of employees I finally found the room. I'll admit now, I really should have paid more attention to the signs but was in rush and didn't bother. Luckily there was a nurse already in this lady's room. I was just going to walk in and drop food off when the nurse starts shaking her hands and rushes to me. "No. No. No. You can't come in here. This is isolation." "Oh, I'm sorry." She ordered a delivery. She went back in the room and asked the lady if she ordered delivery and I heard the lady say yes. I overheard the nurse tell her you should have told me. Nurse comes back to me to grab food and told me if I had walked in the room I was not be let back out or something along those lines. Threw me for a loop, haha. I will pay more attention now. I promise. I wasn't delivering pizza. It was fancy pastries. To a mansion in Benedict's Canyon. At the crack of dawn. There were a bunch of drunk, naked, middle-aged women. They didn't tip. I delivered pizza in a slum during high school. There was a lot of f-ked up shitty, but the ones that really bothered me were delivering to junkies that had multiple young children just living in filth. There was one particular junkie who was always barely conscious and had like 4 kids living in squalor and eating probably nothing but pizza and soda every day. Also, these junkies always had some sh-fed enabler, usually their parents, ordering the food for them. So it was 50/50 on whether or no they even answered the door or were otherwise aware of the delivery coming. I had a delivery to a normal address. But 2 blocks away from it a guy on a bike flagged me down. Asked if I was a delivery guy and said it was for him. He gave me his phone number and it was his order. We don't have those signs on the top of our car. And I was in a busy suburb, so I have no clue how he knew it was me.